It's still dark when the first breeze sighs across the Giza Plateau, carrying with it a faint tang of whetstone, ash, and the distinct hint of something musky that might be old goats or freshly woken men. Hard to say. Overhead, the stars blink their final sleepy signals before vanishing into the approaching gold wash of dawn. The desert is still quiet, but not for long. You are lying on a scratchy mat inside a cramped mud brick workers' dormitory. The floor beneath you is sand-caked and uneven. A fellow worker snores softly beside you, his head resting on a folded tunic that smells strongly of barley beer. You, unfortunately, are not so lucky. You used your tunic to mop up vomit the night before. Yours, not someone else's. Bread that had definitely turned. From outside comes the low call of the overseer's horn, a mournful groan that signals the beginning of another glorious day in service of the gods, the pharaoh, and various unexplained backaches. You sit up, slowly. Your back pops in 4 places. You are 19 years old and feel 60. There's grit in your teeth, under your nails, possibly behind your eyeballs. You stretch, reluctantly. You probably won't make it through this day. But here you are. Before we shuffle further into the sands of time, take a moment to like and subscribe if your eyes aren't already half closed. It really does help this sleepy little channel grow. And while you're at it, let us know in the comments, what time is it where you are, and where in the world are you watching from? We like imagining the glow of screens like fireflies in the night. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey. You step outside into a sky smeared with apricot and dust. The ground is already warm. In the distance, the rising sun glints off the half-finished pyramid, its shape still rugged, less a monument to eternity and more like a misplaced mountain made of regrets and limestone blocks. Thousands of other workers stumbled from their huts, all blinking, scratching, yawning in harmony. It's oddly comforting, like you're all equally doomed together. And now, breakfast, or something resembling it. A young boy is handing out pieces of coarse flatbread, barely warmed by the sun, and generously seasoned with sand. You chew slowly. A jug of fermented beer, low alcohol, high funk, circulates in a clay cup passed from hand to hand. Hydration and humility, all in one sip. Historians still debate whether this labor was voluntary, conscripted, or some complicated hybrid of civic duty and economic incentive. You personally suspect it's mostly do it or lose your grain rations. You wipe your mouth with your sleeve. Time to report to your gang. You're part of the crew of the Sparrowhawk, a poetic name that sadly does not reflect your speed, grace, or ability to avoid being yelled at by foremen. Today, you're on hauling duty. Again. And so, you begin your trudge toward the pyramid ramp, an enormous sloping road made of packed earth and crushed stone, snaking up the side of the rising monument like a terrible tan tongue. Fact for today. The Great Pyramid of Khufu was built with over 2 million blocks of stone, each weighing between 2 and 15 tons. No, you don't get to pick the light ones. As your team latches ropes to a limestone block, you take a deep breath. The ropes cut into your palms, rough and familiar. The foreman yells. The men strain. The sled groans against the dirt. Someone farts. Nobody laughs. Welcome to pyramid life. Weird tidbit? Some ancient graffiti found on the pyramid blocks reveal the gang names of builders, the Friends of Khufu, the Drunkards of Menkaure, and possibly the Beaten Dogs of the Morning Shift. That last one might be apocryphal. Still feels true. The block shudders forward. You walk backwards up the ramp, tugging with your group in unison, legs shaking, lungs burning. At the top, you rest just long enough to catch your breath and admire the view. Endless desert, shimmering heat, and an increasing awareness that you're not getting enough calcium. The sun rises higher. You squint. There's talk of a sandstorm later, but for now it's only sweat and sky. And you've got another 10 hours to go.
By mid-morning, you're no longer sure what hurts more, your shoulders, your thighs, or your sense of self-worth. The sun has risen with theatrical cruelty, painting your world in blinding beige. You long for shade, or water, or perhaps a time machine. Still, there's rhythm to the labor. You haul, you grunt, you pause, you haul again. And in that strange, syncopated agony you find not peace exactly, but predictability, which in ancient Egypt is about as good as it gets. You take a moment while switching tasks to look up at the pyramid. It's bigger than you can comprehend, not just in size, but in implication. You're building something that will outlast everything. Your family, your village, your aching legs, maybe even this language. That's either inspiring or wildly depressing, depending on how much sleep you got. And speaking of things that don't make sense, lunch. A cart creaks into the workers' camp, bearing dried fish, onions, and more beer. The fish is as salty as the Nile in August, and the onions could strip paint. You eat both, willingly. You wash it down with beer so sour it might actually be cleaner than the water. You're grateful. A priest walked past, clutching a satchel of incense and muttering spells to ward off injury. He stops to dab resin on the pulley posts. Protective magic, they say. It smells like pine tar and hope. Historians still debate whether this mix of spiritual and practical life was symbolic or deeply sincere. You're too busy not losing a toe under a block to care. You're reassigned to smoothing stones. You don't mind. It's quiet work. You sit on a boulder, chiseled in hand, rasping at a sun-warmed limestone slab. The sound is rhythmic, like a whispering cicada. Flakes of stone collect on your legs. Your hands begin to numb. The master mason checks your work. Grunts, nods. You have earned yourself another hour of not being screamed at. You overhear someone say that the pharaoh visits the site next week. Supposedly. Maybe. Someone else insists the pharaoh hasn't even looked at this thing since laying the cornerstone. You decide not to care. Pharaoh or no pharaoh, your work remains exactly the same. Dusty, endless, and mildly absurd. Obscure tidbit? Workers used to bake amulets into their bread for luck, tiny clay charms shaped like lotus flowers or dung beetles. You bit into one once. It cracked my molar. Not lucky. The sun creeps across the sky like a bored cat. Shadows shrink, then lengthen again. The stone beneath your thighs is almost hot enough to fry fish. The wind picks up, rustling across your skin like dry fingers. The foreman calls for block alignment. You groan, stand, stretch. Something in your lower back makes a sound that resembles a clay pot breaking. You trudge back to the ramp. Your group is already assembling. You take your spot, grip the rope. Another block, another haul. But this time the stone catches, sticks, won't move. The foreman swears creatively. Someone suggests pouring water on the sand to reduce friction. It works. You make a mental note. Sand plus water equals slightly less misery. Possibly your first scientific discovery. By late afternoon, your arms feel like they've aged independently from the rest of your body. The horizon has gone hazy. Dust devils dance in the distance like mocking ghosts. You pass by a scribe seated under a tattered awning, recording something on a clay tablet. You try to read it, but your eyes are full of sweat. He looks up, grins. Only 999,873 more stones to go. You laugh once. It sounds like sandpaper. The wind howls louder. Someone mutters about omens. someone else slaps them with a sandal. You keep working, because what else would you do? And as the sun begins to slip behind the dunes, casting gold shadows on the stone ramp, you realize something quietly profound. You're too tired to panic about tomorrow. And in this place, that might just be enough.
Night arrives like a sigh, soft and slow, pressing its cool palm against the scorched skin of the day. You're finally back in the dormitory, or what passes for one. 4 walls, a roof made of reeds and wishful thinking, and the overwhelming scent of unwashed feet. Your limbs buzz with exhaustion, the kind that seeps into bone. You lie down, not because it's comfortable, but because standing feels like an ancient betrayal. Someone nearby is humming, a lullaby, maybe, or just trying to dislodge a beetle from his throat. Hard to tell. Sleep should come easily. It doesn't. Your muscles twitch with the memory of motion. Your hands still clench unconsciously, gripping phantom ropes. You turn over and catch a glimpse through the open door. The pyramid, lit faintly by torchlight, looms in the distance like a giant tooth waiting to bite the stars. You drift, you wake, you drift again. Before dawn, a commotion rouses you. 2 men from your gang were caught hoarding onions, precious currency in this world of flavorless gruel and social hierarchy. They're marched away by temple guards, barefoot and weeping, swearing they only meant to save them for later. Historians still debate whether the Egyptian workers were unionized in some fashion or just extraordinarily passive-aggressive. Either way, hoarding onions was apparently a capital offense in the court of workplace snacks. You rise, sore and puffy-eyed, and begin another day. Breakfast is, surprise, bread and beer. The bread is slightly less sandy today. A sign of good luck, or just someone remembered to cover the basket? You're reassigned to the Copper Quarry team. That's a day's march east, where workers dig out the soft metal used for chisels. You're not thrilled, but you've heard it's easier than block hauling, which is like saying it's gentler than a camel kick. As you leave the pyramid site, you glance back. The structure glows pink and golden in the morning light. You squint at it, trying to summon some grandeur. Nope, still just a really large rock pile. The trek is long and hot. The Nile sparkles in the distance, taunting you. A crocodile watches from the bank, perfectly still, as if judging your life choices. You consider judging his in return, but he has teeth. You don't. Not many, anyway. By mid-morning you reach the site. The copper mine is a pit of blistering rock and cursing men. You're handed a mallet, a bronze chisel, and an encouraging nod that says, "Don't pass out." You begin chipping, slowly, carefully. Your hands vibrate with each strike. Copper veins shimmer faintly in the wall, glinting like buried treasure you'll never get to keep. Fact for today: ancient Egyptians used copper tools for nearly every aspect of pyramid construction, from cutting stone to shaping wood. And copper, while softer than your ego after a failed romance, was surprisingly effective with enough elbow grease. A water boy passes by, offering sips from a shared jar. You drink gratefully, then realize the water tastes faintly of goat. You say nothing. You need friends. Weird tidbit of the day: ancient workers believed the copper itself had healing powers. Some would wear small slivers tied in linen around their necks to protect against bad dreams and joint pain. You consider pocketing a flake. Can't hurt. By late afternoon, your arms are noodles and your shoulders feel like they've been sat on by a deity with weight issues. You stop, stretch, watch a group of baboons picking a lice from each other under a shade tree nearby. You envy their job security. Then it's time to head back. The walk home is quieter. The group is too tired for talk. Just the sound of feet shuffling over sand, a low whistle of wind, and the rhythmic creak of someone's knees protesting existence. As the pyramid reappears on the horizon, you realize that, slowly, day by day, it's growing. Taller, straighter, more real. You helped with that. Then you step in camel dung, and the moment is over.
You arrive back at the site, just in time for the evening meal. Lentil stew with a side of communal complaints. The stew is hot, at least. A luxury. Someone passes around a crust of honeyed bread, a rare treat saved for holy days or particularly bribable cooks. You get a bite. It's gone, in 2 chews. You lean back against a wall, bowl in hand, and listen. Stories are being told, wild, wheezing tales of crocodile wrestling, drunken priests, and the mysterious disappearance of a foreman named Ipu, last seen with a Nubian dancer and 3 jugs of date wine. No one knows where he went. No one asks too hard. Historians still debate whether the Egyptians had a robust oral storytelling tradition or just a lot of bored men with overactive imaginations. Either way, tonight, it's keeping the gloom at bay. A boy lights a clay lamp near your feet. The flicker dances on the ground, casting long, playful shadows. You watch it for a while, the way you'd watch a small animal trying to decide whether to run or cuddle. Your eyes begin to close. But then, of course, you're summoned. Emergency duty. A large sled carrying a ceremonial obelisk cracked its axle and needs immediate attention. You consider faking your death, but someone already did that last week and the act wore thin after they coughed during their funeral. You trudge out to the site under torchlight. The obelisk gleams like a polished tooth, long and strangely elegant. It weighs several tons and lies diagonally across the work path like a very judgmental snake. The foreman barks orders. You lift, push, curse under your breath in 3 languages. The block groans, shifts, finally slides into place. Fact of the hour? Egyptians didn't use wheels for heavy transport. They preferred sleds dragged over slick and sand, often watered down to reduce friction. Simple. Brutal. Effective. Much like your current mood. A priest arrives, throws natron on the sand, and mutters a prayer to Hathor. Someone swears the obelisk shifted by itself. You roll your eyes. Then it shifts again. You stop rolling. The obelisk is eventually stabilized. Your gang cheers weakly. A dog barks in celebration, then promptly pees on someone's foot. Ancient symbolism, probably. Back at your hut, the stars are out again. The sky is a velvet dome poked with pinholes. You lie down, aching, and somehow oddly satisfied. Obscure tidbit? Workers sometimes scratched little stick figures into nearby rocks, tiny scenes of men with overactive arms lifting stones twice their size. A kind of ancient motivational doodle, or satire, or both. You drift into sleep imagining your stick figure has wings, and possibly a very cushy desk job. You probably won't make it through the week, but you're making history. And for tonight, that's enough.
Dawn rolls in again, as it always does, slow, pink, and entirely without your consent. You wake before the horn this time, not out of eagerness, but because your back has lodged a complaint that can no longer be ignored. You roll onto your side, groaning like a half-buried stone, and catch the scent of someone else's breath. It's onion forward. You turn away and sit up. Outside, the morning mist curls along the ground like tired smoke. A few workers are already stirring, rubbing eyes, stretching arms, muttering prayers to any god that will listen. One man is arguing with his sandal. The sandal seems to be winning. Today's task is inspection walk, which sounds nice, like a casual stroll with a clipboard. In reality, it means you follow a temple scribe up and down the ramps, noting cracks in stone blocks, gaps in mortar, and other signs of doom. It's less about fixing things and more about documenting the ways everything is falling apart. You trail behind the scribe, who's wrapped in pristine linen and smells faintly of expensive oils.
He carries a reed pen and a wooden board coated with beeswax. He writes quickly, glancing at each block as though it's personally offended him. You ask if he ever gets tired of writing. He says, "No, my hand was blessed by Thoth." You nod respectfully and try not to comment on how many spelling errors you saw last time he left his notes unattended. The sun climbs. You count birds for a while. 7 ibises, 5 vultures, 1 suspiciously round pigeon. You name the pigeon Meatball. He waddles with purpose. Fact for today, the pyramid's orientation is nearly perfect. Each side faces a cardinal direction within a tiny fraction of a degree. No one knows how they did it. Best guess? Stars, strings, and possibly an astonishing amount of stubbornness. As you pause beside one of the finished tiers, you notice the fine polish of the casing stones, smooth as ivory. Once the entire pyramid gleamed like this, bright white limestone, catching the sun like a beacon. Most of that outer layer has eroded or been stolen by later builders, but here and there it survives. You touch the stone. It's cool, quiet, ancient, probably judging your posture. The scribe mumbles something about alignment irregularities and scribbles furiously. You're not sure if it's about the pyramid or your hair. You smooth it anyway. Weird tidbit? Ancient Egyptian engineers may have used a tool called a merhet, a straight bar with a plumb line, to track stars and measure angles. A fancy ruler, basically, wielded by people who didn't have calculators but somehow still outperformed your last math teacher. By midday, you're sweaty, dusty, and oddly philosophical. You stare out across the desert, flat as a papyrus sheet. Somewhere out there is Memphis, the real city, not the modern one, full of palaces and temples and people who think your job is simple labor. Historians still debate whether the laborers were respected citizens or just expendable muscle with charming tattoos. Your lower back suggests the latter. You head back for lunch. More lentils, more bread, more beer. You eat sitting on a stone slab with your feet in the shade. For 5 minutes, life feels survivable. And then someone drops a chisel on your toe.
The afternoon begins with a very detailed discussion about rope. Not metaphorical rope, literal fraying hemp rope. The kind that holds together a 2-ton limestone block on a wooden sled that might, at any moment, decide to escape downhill with murderous intent. You're on sled duty again, but today you're in the pull and swerve team. It's exactly what it sounds like. You pull, and when things go wrong, you swerve. You and your team are dragging a particularly stubborn block up the side of the eastern ramp. The wind has picked up. Sand flies sideways into your eyes. Your mouth tastes like crunchy toast, but sadder. A foreman shouts, "Heave!" and you all lean into the ropes. The sled lurches forward, then stops, then lurches again. You feel the fibers biting into your palms. One of the ropes lets out a sound like a camel groaning. You all freeze. Miraculously, it holds. For now. Fact of the day. Some studies suggest that large construction crews used music and rhythmic chants to coordinate their movements when hauling heavy loads. You try to start a chant. It dies after the first 2 syllables. No one wants to sing with you. Again. The block reaches the halfway point. A priest flicks holy water, or sweat, it's unclear, at the sled and mutters a charm. It might be working. Or maybe you're just better hydrated today. There's a pause to rest. You sit in the shade of a scaffold, watching ants march over your toes. Nearby, a team of stonemasons is carving the base of a statue, a lion with a very small head and very large paws. You admire the confidence. Weird cultural tidbit? Egyptians sometimes buried tiny model tools and workers in foundation pits.
magical backups in case the real crew failed or the gods got bored. A divine just in case. You wonder if there's a mini-you buried somewhere eternally chiseling in silence. The break ends. The final ascent begins. This part is always the hardest. The block groans like it knows its fate. One man slips. You catch him. Barely. He grins, thanks you, and says he'll name his next goat after you. You're flattered and a little concerned. As you reach the top, the block is guided into place by two precision masons, one old and leathery, the other younger with the casual arrogance of someone who hasn't yet dropped a stone on their own foot. They fit the block into its slot with a satisfying thunk. The crowd murmurs approval. Someone slaps you on the back. Someone else hands you a fig. You sit on the edge of the ramp, chewing quietly. The wind is cool here. The view is endless. Historians still debate whether ramps spiraled around the pyramid, extended straight out, or zigzagged in ways that gave ancient planners migraines. There's evidence for all. None are pleasant. You lean back, eyes half closed, and watch as a line of ants carries a crumb down the ramp you just conquered. Effortless, coordinated, smug little overachievers. Below, the Nile glows like melted bronze. Beyond that, the edge of the world. And above it all, the pyramid keeps rising.
It's evening again, though the heat hasn't quite realized it yet. The air hums with the soft energy of tasks winding down, final chisels tapping, ropes coiled and hung, water jars scraped clean. You return to camp with the dragging gait of someone who's had exactly enough character building for one lifetime. Tonight is rest night, which is not the same as restful night. It simply means no shifts, no emergency halls, and no one yelling your name, unless it's for a beetle sighting or communal gossip. You sit by the fire pit with your usual group. One man is carving a comb out of bone. Another is braiding a rope bracelet for his daughter, muttering the words to an old hymn under his breath. Someone throws a handful of dried herbs into the flames. It smells like mint, or whatever passed for mint before people learned to grow it on windowsills. You stretch out, sore and dusty and full of lintels. The stars are out. Somewhere nearby, a woman sings to herself while carrying jars of water from the communal well. The tune loops like the Nile, lazy, eternal, oddly reassuring. Fact for tonight: the workers who built the pyramids lived in organized villages with bakeries, breweries, medical huts, and dormitories. Far from the slave myth, many were skilled laborers, paid in bread, beer, and the enduring joy of not being stepped on by camels. You lean back against a low wall and stare at the sky. Someone beside you says the gods wrote their names in the stars, and that's how the constellations were born. You consider saying something skeptical, but the quiet feels too kind to ruin. Weird tidbit? Ancient Egyptian love songs have survived on papyri and tomb walls, some of them astonishingly flirty. One includes the line, "Your love has penetrated all within me." You snort, then blush, then snort again. The fire crackles. A beetle scuttles by your foot with the unwavering focus of a public official. You move your foot out of respect. Historians still debate whether these worker villages were permanent towns or temporary encampments that shifted with the project. Given the state of the outhouses, you're guessing temporary. You glance toward the pyramid, looming now in silhouette, somehow darker than the night around it, larger, hungrier. Tomorrow you return to the cutting fields, but tonight there's fig paste on your bread and cool air on your neck. Tonight, the world is not entirely unkind, and your sandals haven't broken in 3 days. Miracles do happen.
The morning begins with a sneeze. Yours.
Sharp, sudden, and dusty, like your entire life lately. You sit up, nose tingling, as a cloud of sand drifts lazily past the door. Someone curses the wind, someone else sneezes in harmony. Outside, it's less sunrise and more gentle glare. A dusty gold haze settles across everything. The pyramid is half visible, half swallowed in shifting air. A good day for squinting. You're headed to the eastern limestone quarries today. It's a half-hour walk past the workers' village, through a series of hills and canyons where the white stone is sliced directly from the bones of the earth. You walk with your gang, 12 men, 2 donkeys, and 1 bird that refuses to leave the foreman's head. It just sits there, preening as though inspecting the quality of labor from above. No one mentions it anymore. Fact of the day? The limestone used for the bulk of the pyramid was quarried locally, but the fine white casing stones came from Tura, across the river, floated in by boat. You have yet to be invited on a boat. This is a personal disappointment. You reach the quarry, which is more a series of wounds in the earth than anything else. Sunlight bounces off pale stone and into your eyes like divine mockery. You wince, spit grit, and get to work. Today's tool? The dolerite hammerstone. It's a rounded chunk of volcanic rock, excellent for pounding limestone into submission, less excellent for your wrists. You lift it high and bring it down with a crunch, again. Hours pass like ants, slow, numerous, and mildly irritating. Someone finds a fossil in the wall, some ancient shell creature curled into the rock. You all gather around it like it's a visiting celebrity. One man wants to smash it for luck, another wants to worship it. You vote for leave it alone, we're tired. Weird cultural tidbit? The Egyptians believed certain stones contained the breath of gods. Some were kept in temples, others worn as amulets. You suspect your hammerstone contains the breath of a god who smokes heavily and shouts unnecessarily. Break time. You gather under a crooked acacia tree. Someone has date cakes. You don't ask how, you simply accept. The bird from earlier steals one mid-bite and flies off triumphant. The foreman doesn't react. He hasn't blinked in an hour. You're starting to worry. Historians still debate whether the cutting and shaping of stones was done entirely on site or pre-trimmed in the quarries. You suspect it was a bit of both, depending on time, tools, and the mood of the gods that week. Back at the stone pile, you help wedge a fresh slab free. It tips, lands perfectly on the sled, and stays there. No injuries, no crushed feet. You all cheer like children. It feels good to win. The donkeys are loaded. You walk back slowly, the sun behind you. The pyramid gleams faintly in the distance, its angles catching the light like a mirror held to the sky. You arrive at camp dusty, sore, and thinking only of stew. Tonight, it's lentils again, with leeks. You weep gently. Whether from joy or sulfur is unclear. You sit by the fire, watching a boy try to juggle 3 eggs and a pebble. He fails spectacularly. You applaud anyway. You look up. The stars are out again. Unchanging, ancient, beautiful. Much like your back pain.
It's not the horn that wakes you this time. It's the birds. Specifically, one bird. A shrill, persistent thing that somehow found its way into your dorm and is now hopping enthusiastically across your chest. You swat gently. It pecks your ear. You sit up, sighing, and mutter something unkind about the sacred ibis. Outside, it's a breeze-kissed morning, rare and cool. The kind of day where even the sand seems to sigh in relief. You step into your sandals, one of which appears to have shrunk overnight, and join the trickle of workers heading toward the site. Today, you are not hauling, hammering, or shaping. Today, you're counting. A royal census clerk has arrived, tall, thin, face like a linen-wrapped blade. He speaks in clipped tones and carries a tally stick as though it contains the secrets of the universe. You're one of the workers pulled aside to help him confirm unit logistics. You think it means counting heads and estimating how many people are pretending to work. He nods to you. Start with the copper team, then tools, then bread. You blink. Bread? Yes, he says with the severity of a crocodile lawyer. There were discrepancies. So you begin your journey through the camp, not as a laborer, but as an accidental bureaucrat. It's unsettling. First stop, copper tools storage. A small tent filled with chisels, hammers, and one very elderly guard who swears he hasn't slept since the reign of Sneferu. You count 62 chisels. He insists there are 63. You find the extra one under his seat. No one asks questions. Fact of the day. Egyptian labor organization was highly advanced, with rotating crews, foremen, record keepers, and an entire system of inventory management based on tallies, tokens, and painted ostraca, broken pottery pieces, used like post-it notes. At the bakery, things get more interesting. The head baker is a round, flour-dusted man who greets you like an old friend. "We had 400 loaves this morning," he says, arms wide. Then boom! Birds! You narrow your eyes. Birds? Birds! You look up. A flock of crows is perched nearby, suspiciously full-looking. The clerk frowns and begins scratching notes onto his tally stick like it owes him money. Weird tidbit. Egyptians believed certain gods could take the form of birds and test your generosity, which raises questions about your lunch. You finish the count by noon. A small feast is arranged in the clerk's honor, figs, beer, and flatbread. You get to sit near him, which is technically a compliment and functionally a test of patience. He eats slowly, chewing each bite like it might explode. Historians still debate whether these royal audits were frequent or reserved for major project milestones. Judging by the scribe's attitude, I suspect it's the former, and that he'd very much like to be promoted to something involving fewer people. After lunch, you're free to return to camp. You use the time to fix your sandal with a spare bit of rope. It looks terrible. It works perfectly. The bird returns, perches on your knee, and stares. You stare back. You're not sure who wins.
The afternoon is quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that usually means something important has been forgotten. You sit outside your hut, mending a tear in your tunic with a fishbone needle and humming the only song you can remember from childhood. It involves cows, the moon, and possibly pickled radish. No one else seems to know it. That might be for the best. And then it happens. Trumpets. Not musical trumpets, announcement trumpets. The kind that means someone important has arrived, or someone thinks they are. The camp shudders into motion. Overseers straighten their headdresses. Priests rush to light incense. Workers are told to look busy, a task at which you now consider yourself a trained professional. A royal envoy has arrived. She steps down from her litter with the grace of someone who has never stepped in donkey dung. Her robes are immaculate.
her eyebrows intimidating. She is here on behalf of the Queen, sent to inspect the progress of divine architecture. You are very much in the way. You attempt to bow. Your back cracks like an old door. She does not seem impressed. Fact of the day? While pharaohs often get the spotlight, royal women held significant influence in religious and construction matters, overseeing estates, temples, and yes, even pyramid sites. She walks among the ramps with her attendants, nodding occasionally, frowning often. At one point, she gestures at a block slightly out of alignment. The foreman pales. You swear you see him age a year on the spot. Eventually, she stops by the scaffolding where you're pretending to tighten ropes. She says, are you loyal to the pharaoh? You blink. Yes, your radiant, ladyship. She stares. You try again. Yes. She nods and moves on. You exhale. Weird tidbit? Court officials sometimes carried scent cones, wax objects placed on their heads that melted over time, releasing perfume. Elegant, slightly gross, and effective. You now wonder if the royal envoy's hair smells like lilies or melting candles. As the procession leaves, the tension drops. Someone cheers. Someone else drops a hammer on their foot in celebration. You resume actual rope work, this time with slightly better posture. The sun begins its slow descent, casting golden stripes across the pyramid's face. A falcon soars overhead. The foreman mutters a blessing. Historians still debate whether these visits were ceremonial or had practical oversight. Judging by the amount of bowing, I suspect ceremonial, with a hint of terror. That night the cooks bring out honey cakes, one per person. You savor it slowly, letting the sugar melt on your tongue like victory. As the stars come out, you sit in the sand with your back to the wall, letting the pyramid tower over you like a sleeping giant. Its presence is strange comfort now. Silent, steady, impossible. You close your eyes. You've earned it. Even the bird agrees.
You wake to the sound of singing. Low, rhythmic, and distant, rolling in from somewhere near the quarry, or maybe the river, depending on the wind. It's a work song, one you've heard before, carried by tired voices and the slap of sandals on packed earth. You sit up slowly. Your limbs feel like someone else's, borrowed, slightly broken, and held together with dust and determination. You stretch. Something in your neck clicks like a snapped reed. You're ready. Sort of. Today's task is transportation, escorting a sled team from the docks to the pyramid base. Sounds fancy. It's mostly shouting, sweating, and trying not to lose a toe. At the riverbank, the barge has arrived early, sails slack in the wind. Thick white limestone from Tura is being offloaded by dockhands with arms like tree trunks and smiles like sunburned frogs. They greet you with a nod and a jug of beer. You accept both. Fact of the day: the Tura limestone was prized for its smooth, pale finish. Barges floated the massive blocks across the Nile during flood season, using canals specially dug to reach the construction site. Ancient shipping lanes, complete with their own brand of traffic jams. Your sled team gets into position. The ropes are freshly braided. Someone's been praying to the right gods. You grip your end, set your feet, and lean. The block moves, slowly, reluctantly. You chant, not for fun, but to keep time. Pull, rest, pull, swerve. It's become a kind of meditation, if your meditation includes sand in every available crevice. A young boy runs ahead with a jug, sprinkling water on the sand path to ease friction. He's fast, joyful, and probably blessed by some mischief deity. You follow his lead with your eyes, half jealous. The sled creaks up the slope. The sun is brutal today. No wind, no shade, just your breath and the distant hiss of heat rising from stone.
Weird tidbit? Workers sometimes dyed their linens red for protection, believing the color warded off scorpions and evil spirits. You're considering trying it, but suspect it will only attract more attention from supervisors. As you near the ramp's midpoint, the block lurches suddenly. A rope slips. Panic. But no one is crushed. It catches on a rock outcrop. You all stop, panting. A priest scurries forward to chalk symbols on the stone, muttering something about balance and the goddess Mot. You don't argue. The block begins to move again. Maybe by physics, maybe by prayer. You reach the platform. The masons are waiting, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. You step back and let them take over. Historians still debate how the final placement of blocks was achieved so precisely. Levers? Sand-filled pits? Swarms of very small, very strong cats? You personally think it's a mix of geometry and not wanting to get yelled at. The day ends with sweat and satisfaction. One more stone in place, one less on the barge. You feel helpful. Briefly. You sit on a rock, drink water from a shared jug, and wipe your face with the edge of your tunic. The wind returns, gently this time, like a hand on your shoulder. The pyramid gleams. You try not to squint.
Dinner tonight is unusually quiet. There's no particular reason, no thunder, no famine, no visiting nobles, just the kind of calm that settles in after a long stretch of shared labor. Everyone's tired, everyone's full. No one wants to start an argument about goat distribution again. You're eating lentil stew with coriander. Someone's added garlic. It's divine. You tell them so. They smile and confess they stole it from the temple garden. You pretend not to hear. After the meal, you and a few others wandered toward the far end of camp, where the scribes sometimes set up shop near the torch stands. Tonight, they're demonstrating a new plaster mixing technique that's supposed to reduce cracks. It smells like wet chalk and ambition. A young apprentice invites you to try shaping a small plastered tile. You do. It looks like a square that's lost hope. You thank him anyway. Fact of the day: Egyptian plaster wasn't just decorative. It was essential for smoothing pyramid casings and providing a surface for paintings, inscriptions, and symbolic curses, the flattering kind. Many of these surfaces were polished with stones or even shark skin. You stay to watch the master scribe illustrate a falcon on a fresh panel. It emerges with swift, sure strokes, eyes sharp, wings wide, talons ready. You wonder what it would be like to fly over the pyramid you're building. Probably dusty. Nearby, two girls play a game with pebbles, tossing and catching them in sequence while humming a tune about river spirits and lost sandals. The lyrics make little sense, but the tune stays in your head. Weird tidbit: children's games from ancient Egypt often involved symbolic tasks, balancing, throwing, catching, mirroring adult work in a playful way. Even fun had job training built in. You stroll past the dormitories toward the scaffolding. The moon is out now, pale and round. A mason stands on the edge of the structure, gazing up at it. "That's the Pharaoh's eye," he says, not looking at you, watching. You nod, not sure if you agree or if it's just too late to disagree. Historians still debate whether the pyramids had spiritual or strictly funerary functions. You suspect both. When a structure demands this much of you, it stops being just a building. The night is cool. Someone sings softly an old hymn to Osiris. You don't know the words, but you hum along. Eventually, you return to your mat. Your joints sigh, your mind drifts. You sleep, knowing that tomorrow will bring more stone, more sand, more sweat. But also, somewhere hidden in all that, meaning. And maybe, if you're lucky, garlic again.
The morning mist hangs low, clinging to the ground like a shawl no one asked for. You wake with it in your hair, cool and damp, and for a brief moment you imagine you're somewhere else, anywhere else. But then your left hip reminds you are here, and you are sore. Today is shift rotation day. Once every few weeks, workers are assigned new posts, not because the work gets better, but because watching someone else suffer through your old job is one of the few joys allowed in this lifetime. You're posted to the alignment crew. That's the team responsible for ensuring the newly placed blocks are precisely positioned, flat, level, and not quietly trying to slide away when no one's looking. The foreman is a tall, narrow man named Didu, who speaks as though punctuation is beneath him. He hands you a copper plumb bob, a leveling tool made of string, weight, and pure anxiety. "If it swings wrong," he says, "we all do." You nod, deeply uncertain what wrong means. Fact of the day: Egyptians used plumb bobs, levels, and sight lines to keep their structures astonishingly accurate. The base of the Great Pyramid is leveled to within less than an inch across 13 acres, which is approximately 12.9 acres better than your first attempt at alignment. Your first test block goes well, until it doesn't. You set the string, check the angle, and feel proud. Then the sun shifts. Your shadow falls across the face of the stone. The foreman frowns. The block suddenly looks crooked, slightly. Didu sighs with a depth that suggests he regrets every life choice that brought him to this moment. "Try again," he mutters. You do. Again and again. By noon, your back is bent and your spirit lightly cracked, but your final placement earns a grunt of approval. You hold back tears. Break time brings relief. Bread, beer, and a seat in the shade of a stone that's definitely in the right place. You rest your head against it and listen to the quiet chatter of nearby masons arguing about which deity has the best sense of humor. The consensus? Bess, obviously. Weird tidbit? Some workers carved tiny faces or winking eyes into misaligned blocks, half a joke, half a warning, like saying, "Yes, we know, don't blame the gods." After the break, you help with joint checking, not a social activity, sadly, but the careful inspection of gaps between stones. You wedge fibers of reed between blocks, testing for movement. One jiggles slightly. You wedge harder. It stops. Victory. Historians still debate whether the laborers understood the full scale of what they were building. You think maybe not, but they knew it mattered. That was enough. As the sun lowers, the air cools. The alignment crew packs up. Didu claps you on the back, unexpected, solid. "Your line is clean," he says. "Tomorrow, smoother." You grin, stupidly. You walk back to camp feeling strangely tall.
Tonight, the air tastes different. Sweeter, somehow. Carried from the river, maybe? Or from the marshlands farther south? There's a breeze that lifts the edge of your tunic and cools the salt on your skin. You close your eyes and let it happen. There's a feast. Not a proper one. No trumpets, no painted jars, but a shared meal, bigger than usual. Rumor has it a royal burial has just been completed, and the stonemasons were given extra grain and meat as thanks. They shared, as stonemasons occasionally do when the moon is right. You eat roasted duck. Duck! Actual duck! It's oily and rich and disappears far too fast. There's cucumber too, and honey dates. You chew slowly, savoring. You don't even mind the man next to you smacking his lips like a water buffalo with rhythm. You're full. Actually full. You lean back against a pile of coiled rope and gaze at the pyramid.
glowing softly under moonlight. It feels closer now, familiar, less terrifying, more inevitable. Fact of the day, the ancient Egyptians aligned the pyramids not just with cardinal directions, but with the stars. Some scholars believe the Great Pyramid's internal shafts point towards specific constellations: Orion's Belt, Sirius, the circumpolar stars, a cosmic GPS for the pharaoh's soul. You consider this while picking your teeth with a splinter of acacia. The man across from you is telling a story, something about a scorpion priest, a stolen jug of wine, and a misinterpreted prophecy. You've heard this one before. It gets better every time. Weird tidbit? There were specific hieroglyphs meant to be deactivated in tombs. Symbols of dangerous creatures like snakes or lions were deliberately damaged so they couldn't come alive in the afterlife. Safety first, even in death. You think about that as you finish your beer, how much care they gave to the little things, even the scary ones. As the feast ends, someone brings out a drum. A deep, slow rhythm begins. A woman sings. Her voice is low, husky, woven from smoke and sand. The crowd sways. You lie on your side, head on your folded arm, eyes barely open. The stars above are the same ones your ancestors saw, the same ones Pharaoh will stare at through a tiny shaft carved in stone. Historians still debate whether these moments, the music, the laughter, the duck, were rare or part of daily life. You hope it was both. Rarity makes it sweeter. Repetition makes it home. You fall asleep to the sound of the drum. It echoes in your chest and in your bones.
The breeze turns inland today, and with it comes a smell. Not a bad one, just dense, earthy, like crushed grass and heat. You wake with it in your nostrils and a crick in your neck. Someone, at some point during the night, has stolen your mat. Or perhaps you rolled off it and refused to return. Either way, your back is unimpressed. You're reassigned to the paint crew, a rare treat, unless you're the kind of person who finds beauty exhausting. You've seen these men working before. Sleeves rolled, pigments in little jars, fingers stained every shade of clay, rust, and blue. They whispered to their brushes like they're coaxing gods into the world. You're handed a pot of red ochre and a long-handled brush that looks suspiciously like it used to belong to a horse. No dripping, the lead painter warns you. This is a face. You nod solemnly. Whose face? He raises an eyebrow. Does it matter? Apparently not. Your first task is filling in the line work on a wall panel intended for a storage chamber. It's a depiction of Anubis weighing the heart of a man against the feather of truth. You try not to dwell on how small the feather looks today. Fact of the day, ancient Egyptians believed your heart held all your thoughts, memories, and sins. At death, it was weighed against Mahat's feather. If it balanced, paradise. If not, well, the devourer beast didn't keep a vegetarian diet. You paint slowly, carefully. You learn the rhythm of your breath. You wipe your brow with the back of your hand, then accidentally smudge a falcon's wing. You fix it, mostly. The pigments are made from crushed minerals, malachite for green, azurite for blue, hematite for red. You're told the most expensive blue is reserved for the god's eyes in the sky. You nod, humbled. Weird tidbit? The blue pigment was so precious that artists sometimes pretended to use it by painting a paler shade and then writing blue in hieroglyphics above it. You find this profoundly relatable. The sun inches west. The wall slowly fills with color and meaning. You can feel it. this strange merging of art and prayer, a kind of still music. You don't speak for hours. Historians still debate whether workers considered themselves artists or merely hands for divine will. But you know how steady your hand had to be today, and how still your heart was, just for a while. As the light fades, you set your brush down, stretch your back, and admire your patch of wall. It's not perfect, but it matters. You leave the painting chamber slowly, stepping over coiled ropes and sleeping dogs. The pyramid glows behind you. Not brightly, not sharply, but like an ember under linen. Its edges blur in the dusk, softened by distance and tired eyes. You walk without hurry. The air is warm, not hot. Still, not stale. Your sandals make soft sounds on the earth, rhythmic and steady, like a lullaby hummed by the ground itself. Around you, camp winds down. A boy carries a bucket of water with both hands, sloshing it just a little. Someone else is boiling reeds to make glue, the steam rising in ghostly curls. A woman plucks a lyre softly, just 5 notes, over and over, like she's playing to the dark itself. You stop near the storage hut, lean against the warm stone wall, and close your eyes. The world hums quietly around you. No orders, no lifting. Just breath and dust, and the soft chorus of things being done for the day. The stars begin to appear. First 1, then 3, then the whole sky opens like a story you've heard before, told better this time. You sit down. The sand shifts under you, shaping to your weight. You let your fingers sink into it, dry and cool like fine sugar. Somewhere, an owl calls. Somewhere else, someone snores. You are not important here, not grand, but you are part of it. This endless, quiet construction of something meant to last. Something larger than pain, larger than names. And tonight, at least, you've done your part. Close your eyes. Let the pyramid watch over you. Let the stars be the only things still working. You wake slowly, not with urgency, but with the kind of hazy patience reserved for days when your body doesn't yet know it's supposed to move. The sounds of morning reach you through layers, footsteps, laughter, the clatter of pots, and none of them feel like your problem yet. Eventually, though, hunger stirs. That and the creeping sensation that if you lie on your side any longer, your hip will attempt a rebellion. You sit up, stretch, blink into the early light. The pyramid silhouette is already sharp against the waking sky, as if it never slept. You nod at it. It doesn't nod back. Typical. Today, you're assigned to scribe assistance, which is a polite way of saying carry things for people who don't lift things. You're handed a leather satchel full of writing tools, reeds, pigment cakes, scraps of papyrus, and a large jug of water with stern instructions not to spill it. Your boss for the day is Sabu, an older scribe with quick hands and slow feet. He's recording stone inventory near the south face, which basically means staring at numbers, then accusing other people of lying about them. Fact of the day: ancient Egyptian scribes had elite status, trained from youth, and were essential to every operation, temple, market, military, or pyramid. Literacy was power, and spelling counted. Sabu makes notes on Ostraka, murmuring aloud as he writes, 24 blocks. No, 23. That one's cracked. You see it? Cracked. No one admits it. The stones lie, boy. You nod solemnly, as if the stones have deeply betrayed you both. The sun climbs slowly, casting shadows over the ramps. You fetch water, hold parchment, get ink on your sleeves. Sabu scolds you, then forgets why, then scolds you again. You learn to enjoy the rhythm. Around midday, a group of young apprentices arrives. They're here to sketch wall measurements and practice hieroglyphs. You peer over a shoulder. A perfect owl, a near-perfect arm, a hopelessly confused fish. Weird tidbit? Ancient Egyptian writing had no vowels. Context was everything, which is why the same symbols could mean offerings, sandal, or please don't touch my goose, depending on the mood. Sabu spends half an hour arguing with another scribe about the placement of a single dot. It is, apparently, the difference between stone platform and stone for platform. You wonder if that dot is worth your sunburn. Historians still debate how much free interpretation scribes had. Some believe there was strict consistency. Others suspect ancient bureaucrats were just as flexible as modern ones, with slightly fancier wigs. After lunch, Sabu sends you to check on pigment supplies in the storage hut. You find 4 jars of ochre, 1 of soot, and 1 labeled green with a question mark. You decide not to ask. By day's end, your arms ache from carrying scrolls, but your mind feels fuller. You've learned a few symbols. You can spot the glyph for bread now. It's shaped like a small mouth, which feels about right. Sabu pats your shoulder. You're slow, but not hopeless. High praise.
The moon is still hanging on the edge of the sky when you're woken by a messenger. He's breathless, young, and far too awake. Inspection, he whispers. You groan. Didn't we do that last week? Different kind. Royal this time. Important. Fancy sandals. You sigh into your blanket. Fancy sandals mean one thing: pretending everything is cleaner and more organized than it really is. You scramble to your feet and join the chaos. Workers are sweeping sand off stones that are made of sand. Someone is washing a statue with a brush that looks better suited to teeth. A foreman tries to bribe the cook for fresher beer. The cook laughs, then considers it. You're handed a broom and told to look purposeful. The procession arrives mid-morning. 3 officials, 1 priest, 2 guards, and a royal architect with a face like a chiseled accusation. He walks like the pyramid owes him money. Fact of the day: royal architects were among the most powerful men in the kingdom, second only to Pharaoh in construction matters. They approved designs, managed resources, and had the final say on whether your career would continue to exist. You watch him examine the site. He inspects the slope of the ramp with a level no one is allowed to touch. He stares at the alignment crew until one of them drops his plumb line in panic. He taps a column twice, then frowns. You are deeply concerned for the column's future. Weird tidbit? Some ancient architects left tiny personal marks hidden within their structures. Less signature, more secret insult. One lintel was found centuries later with a symbol that roughly translates to good enough. The architect moves on, muttering to his assistant in low tones. You trail the group, still pretending to sweep. No one notices that you've been sweeping the same rock for 20 minutes. Historians still debate how much creative freedom builders actually had. Were the pyramids the vision of one mind, or the result of thousands of tiny compromises? You think probably both.
like a pyramid-shaped group project where everyone forgot who's in charge. The inspection ends. No one is arrested, no statues are cursed. You consider this a win. That night, as the sun bleeds out across the desert, you lie on your mat and watch the shadows climb the sides of the pyramid. Each step catches the light like a memory. And though you know you'll climb it again tomorrow, block by block, you don't dread it. Not entirely. Because you're starting to see it now, not just as a pile of stone, but as a shape rising out of time. A shape you're helping to form, even if your part is only a mark on the sand.
The morning begins not with the usual horn or shouted orders, but with silence. Unusual. Suspicious. Slightly alarming. You sit up slowly, half expecting to find the camp deserted, or the pyramid mysteriously gone. Instead, it's all there, just quieter. A kind of communal pause, like even the dust is taking a breath. Then you remember, it's offering day. Once a month, work slows for ritual observances, feasts to the gods, blessings for the labor, and the occasional ceremonial goat. No hauling, no hammering, just incense, food, and pretending you understand the priest's metaphors. You head toward the central courtyard, where preparations are already underway. Clay altars are being scrubbed, palm fronds laid in neat fans. A scribe is reciting a hymn in a sing-song voice that makes your teeth itch. You try to look devout. Fact of the day, offering days were vital not just spiritually, but logistically. They provided time to rest, heal, repair tools, and boost morale. Also, free dates. You're tasked with helping carry the food from the storage hut. You and 3 others form a solemn parade of onions, cucumbers, barley cakes, and several jugs of beer that slosh dangerously with each step. One almost tips. You catch it. The gods are pleased. The ceremony begins with a chant to Ptah, god of craftsmen. The priest wears a leopard skin over his linen robes, always startling since there are no leopards around. No one asks questions. Smoke curls from the altar. You breathe it in. Sweet, woody, with something sharp beneath it, like crushed myrrh and ancient ambition. Weird tidbit? Some temples burn scented fats shaped like lotus flowers, which would melt over time and release layered fragrances. Ancient aerotherapy or extremely fancy air fresheners. After the ritual, there's food. Real food. Roast meat, fish baked in clay, chickpeas with garlic and herbs. You eat until your stomach complains. Then you eat a little more. It would be rude not to. You sit under a tree with your gang, sharing honeyed bread and swapping stories. Someone recalls the time a goat ran into the burial chamber and had to be bribed out with dried figs. Someone else claims to have seen a stone levitate during last month's offering. You nod politely. Historians still debate whether these stories were literal, metaphorical, or just bored workers inventing divine chaos. You're starting to think the answer is always yes. The sun hangs warm and golden. No shouting, no lifting, no cracked nails, just fullness and music and the faint buzz of distant prayers. You don't nap, exactly. You just forget to stay awake. The next day returns to normal, if you define normal as dragging blocks the size of small boats up a ramp made of gravel and other people's regrets. You're back on hauling duty, and your arms do not approve. Neither do your thighs, your lower back, or that one toe that started to develop a troubling sense of self-awareness. Still, the rhythm helps. Pull, rest, pull, curse, repeat. Today's block is being transported to the inner corridor, one of the narrow stone passages that twist through the pyramid's core. It's dark, close, and oddly echoey, like working inside a tomb that hasn't figured out it's supposed to be terrifying yet. Fact of the day, the Great Pyramid contains a series of internal shafts and chambers, including the King's Chamber, Queen's Chamber, and the Grand Gallery. No one's entirely sure what all of them were for. You and your crew ease the block into place, inch by inch, using wooden rollers, copper levers, and enough shouting to wake the Nile gods. It finally clicks into position. Y'all step back and cheer weakly, like the world's dustiest choir. Then you're told to assist with alignment cleaning, which is exactly as thrilling as it sounds. You use a damp cloth and a flat stick to scrape out mortar gaps between blocks. You find a dead lizard. You give it a funeral. Very professional. Minimal weeping. Weird tidbit? Some of the internal blocks bear hidden inscriptions, chalk graffiti from workers marking their crews, prayers for protection, and, in one case, what appears to be a crude drawing of a very unimpressed cow. Later, you crawl into one of the unfinished shafts to help a stonecutter clear debris. It's tight, damp, and filled with ancient dust. The walls whisper as you move, though it's probably just your own breath. You tell yourself this several times. Historians still debate whether some chambers were functional, symbolic, or architectural accidents. You're leaning toward all of the above and possibly spite. As you emerge blinking into the light, the foreman pats your shoulder. Didn't die. Good job. High praise. The sun's already low by the time you reach camp. Dinner is a strange stew that may contain pigeon. No one confirms this. You eat it anyway. You sit by the fire, legs outstretched, watching sparks drift up like starlings. The pyramid looms nearby, its edge catching the final rays of day. You feel useful, not triumphant, just a little necessary. And that, somehow, is enough.
It's not the heat that wakes you today, it's the smell. Burnt barley. You sit up coughing, eyes watering, nose full of charred flour and regret. A baker's apprentice has heroically set fire to the communal oven again. Someone throws a wet mat over the flames. Someone else just mutters, "Third time this month." Breakfast is predictably undercooked. You chew through half-baked dough and sip flat beer, the culinary equivalent of giving up and calling it rustic. Then the foreman announces your assignment, and the day truly begins to spiral. "Grave detail," he says. You blink. "I thought that was for scribes and priests." He grins. "We're behind schedule." You're not reassured. Turns out you're helping with the relief chambers, small compartments above the king's chamber, designed to reduce weight on the ceiling and prevent the whole thing from collapsing like an overconfident pastry. Fact of the day, these chambers were hidden for millennia, only rediscovered in the 1800s by explorers who crawled through dust and bat droppings. Some of the blocks above the chamber weigh more than 50 tons. You follow a narrow tunnel into the heart of the pyramid. It gets darker, closer. The air smells like stone, sweat, and something older than either. You press your hands to the walls to steady yourself. They're cool and dry and seem to hum slightly. Probably just nerves, hopefully. At the end of the passage, a small group of workers is already there, chiseling gently around one of the granite beams. You're handed a pick, not to shape anything, just to clear dust and debris. Still, it's eerie work. The ceiling looms. Every creak feels like a bad omen wrapped in a worse echo. Weird tidbit? The stone blocks above the chamber were slid into place from ramps above the structure, then sealed in with copper clamps and sheer determination. No cranes, no magic, just physics and very tired people. You try to stay focused, but the quiet presses on your ears. No wind, no birds, just the slow scrape of tools and the thump of your own heartbeat. You hum to keep yourself company. It doesn't help. One of the older workers whispers that Pharaoh's spirit sleeps somewhere above, watching. You whisper back that if he's watching, he could at least pass down some ointment for your knees. Historians still debate whether the chambers were always part of the plan or an afterthought when the ceiling started looking nervous. Either way, it works. So far. You emerge blinking into sunlight around mid-afternoon, covered in grit, blinking like a cave beetle. The pyramid behind you stands steady, smugly solid. You sit by the ramp with your legs in the shade and eat a stolen fig. It's squashed and perfect. The foreman walks by and says, "Still not crushed?" You smile. "Not yet."
The breeze tonight is strange, soft and cool, but full of tension, like it's carrying a warning. You feel it before you see it, the shift in the animals. The donkeys are restless, the birds quieter than usual. One dog won't stop pacing in a circle. Even the stars seem to blink a little faster. Then someone shouts, "Flood coming!" Panic. Not the great Nile flood, the seasonal, celebrated one that brings silt and grain. This is something smaller, angrier. A canal overflow near the supply road, heavy rains upriver. The kind of flood that ignores schedules and washes your sandals away. You rush with your crew toward the edge of camp where the water is already trickling in, thick with mud. Someone's yelling about papyrus crates. Someone else is chasing runaway goats. You grab a shovel and start digging a trench. Fact of the day, Egyptians mastered irrigation with an elaborate network of canals, levees, and sluices. But even experts get surprised when Mother Nature wakes up cranky. The trench helps, a little. The water diverts, the cook's hut is saved, so are the tools, the rope piles, and the precious pigment jars. But the beer supply? Soaked. A national tragedy. You stand knee-deep in mud, dripping and swearing softly when the rain finally stops. The clouds pull back like curtains. The moon returns. Everything smells like wet straw and survival. Weird tidbit? Ancient Egyptians actually had a word for chaos water, the primal floods that existed before creation. They called it Nun and believed it still lingered beneath the world, waiting. You're pretty sure Nun just tripped over your fire pit. You help mop up the rest of the evening. A scribe records the damage. The priest blesses the mud. Someone lights incense. It smells like apology. Historians still debate how often these minor floods disrupted pyramid construction. Some claim it was rare. You now suspect rare just means nobody wanted to write it down. Eventually, the chaos fades. The puddles shrink. The goats are corralled. A broken cart is ceremoniously tipped upright and repurposed as a bench. People gather around it to dry out and laugh. You sit on the warmest patch of dry stone you can find. Someone offers you a piece of fried bread. Soggy but sincere. You take it. The pyramid looms above, unmoved, impossibly clean, as if it barely noticed. You lean back and sigh. Somehow, the night feels better than it should, like the world, just for an hour, forgave itself.
You sleep hard and wake harder. Your arms feel like stone. Your legs are full of sand. Your brain takes a full minute to remember who you are, where you are, and why you smell vaguely of wet rope. You stretch and hear your spine negotiate terms. Today is Tool Maintenance Day, which, despite sounding restful, involves fire, hammers, and a very judgmental blacksmith named Horemheb. You walk to the forge slowly, each step peeling dried mud from your skin. The forge is already blazing when you arrive, smoke curling into the brightening sky like impatient handwriting. Sparks leap from the chimney with theatrical flair. Horemheb nods once and hands you a box of dull blades. "Fix them," he says. You stare. "I don't know how." He shrugs. "Learn fast." Fact of the day. Ancient Egyptian metal workers used copper and later bronze to make tools, but copper dulls quickly, especially against limestone, so tools were constantly sharpened, recast, or reforged. Maintenance was as crucial as carving. You get to work at the grindstone, turning the wheel slowly with your foot as sparks tickle the air. The copper blade against the stone makes a high, keening sound, like a mosquito trapped in a hymn. It's strangely satisfying. Physical, repetitive, oddly peaceful. You fall into a rhythm. Push, grind, dip in water, repeat. Horemheb watches with the stern patience of a father owl. Occasionally he grunts approval or swats your elbow with a stip for bad form.
You don't mind. The swats are part of the learning. Weird tidbit? Some ancient copper tools had the names of their users etched into the handles, either as a form of pride or to keep track of who to yell at when they vanished. You consider carving yours, then realize you're borrowing it. You carve a tiny fish instead. Midday comes and goes. You eat beside the fire. Bread with salt and a pickled onion. Your lips sting. You don't complain. It helps you stay awake. In the afternoon, you help retie hammer handles with leather strips soaked in resin. Your fingers stick together. You taste pine every time you wipe your nose. Unintended blessings. Historians still debate whether these workers had set rotations or simply switched tasks based on need. Horemheb says nothing, but his expression suggests all plans are fake, and chaos is the true supervisor. By dusk, your hands are raw, your tunic scorched, your hair full of ash, but the tools shine again, sharp, ready, like something reborn. Horemheb hands you a burnt fig as reward. You take it with solemn gratitude and eat it in 2 bites. As the forge cools, the firelight dances on the walls, casting you taller than you really are. Just for a moment, you feel forged too.
The sky's pale when the knock comes, sharp, deliberate, and far too early. You open the door and find the priest Sanut, small and spry, standing barefoot in the dust. "You're needed," he says. You blink. For inspection of the false door. You nod, as though this is something that happens regularly. It is not. A false door is a symbolic portal carved into the tomb wall through which the spirit of the dead is believed to enter and receive offerings. It must be precise, perfect, spirit approved. You follow Sanut to the burial shaft. It's cool underground, the air smelling of clay and old incense. A torch flickers against the whitewashed walls. The carving stands at the far end. A tall rectangle, flanked by hieroglyphs, topped with a narrow lintel. Sanut frowns. "Too shallow," he murmurs, brushing the edge. "The soul won't come through a lazy door." You hand him a chisel. Fact of the day. False doors were a standard feature of elite tombs in the Old Kingdom. Their placement, inscriptions, and depth were all meticulously considered. A crooked door might insult the soul, or confuse it. You assist in recarving the edge, chisel and mallet and careful rhythm. Sanut whispers prayers as you work. Some of them sound like instructions. Some of them sound like threats. You're not entirely sure which gods are being addressed. You hope they're listening. Weird tidbit. Some false doors included ears, literal carved ears, meant to help the spirit hear the living's prayers. You carve one. It looks like a turnip. Sanut says nothing. The work is slow, sacred. You don't rush. You feel watched. Not by the priest, but by something older. The kind of presence that exists only in rooms like this. Historians still debate whether the workers truly believed in these rituals or simply followed them out of habit and tradition. You believe, at least in this moment. The silence here isn't empty. It's full of waiting. The carving is completed by mid-afternoon. The lines are sharp. The door feels open. Sanut nods once and walks away. You stay behind a little longer, staring at the wall, letting the stillness settle. Then you climb out of the tomb and into the hot, breathing world again, and everything feels just a little more alive. The sky is restless today. Clouds drag themselves across the horizon like tired ships. The wind has teeth. It pulls at your sleeves, tugs at your hair, slips beneath your tunic like a pickpocket with cold hands. Even the sand moves in strange little rivers across the ground, whispering things you'd rather not hear. You've been assigned to the Grand Gallery. You didn't know what that meant until today. Now you wish you still didn't. It's a massive internal corridor inside the pyramid, sloping upward like a ramp for giants. The ceiling stretches high above, vaulted in steps, shadows hanging in soft slices along the walls. It echoes with every footstep. Breaths return twice, once as sound, once as doubt. Your job? Cleaning, dusting, removing debris from the edges where joints meet joints. Precision matters, the overseer says. If the gods get a splinter, that's on you. Fact of the day? The Grand Gallery is over 8 meters high and 46 meters long. Its function is still a mystery. It may have been ceremonial, structural, or both. Or maybe just impressive for the sake of being impressive. Ancient flexing. You climb with care, brush and rag in hand, tracing the smooth limestone. The air grows thinner, colder. You hear your heartbeat in your ears. You hear the pyramid breathing, though that may be you. Halfway up, you pause. There's a mark on the wall. Not official, just scratched in. A tiny image of a bird. Not a hieroglyph, just a doodle. A memory. Someone made that, long ago. Possibly while also pretending to clean. Weird tidbit? Workers sometimes left hidden graffiti deep in structures, names, jokes, crude sketches. One inscription from a different pyramid reads, "The gang of the one who drank too much." You consider adopting it. The afternoon passes in a hush. You clean, you sweat, you think. The pyramid hums around you like 1,000 clocks, all keeping different time. Historians still debate whether the gallery was used for star alignments, stone placement, or ritual ascent. It feels like a tunnel to something. Whether that's the afterlife or your lunch break, you're not sure. As you descend, you glance back one last time. The light from the entrance barely touches the upper reaches. There's a feeling there of being inside something that remembers. You step back into daylight, blinking. The wind greets you like a slap. You squint up at the outer wall, the same stone you just touched from within. It's comforting somehow, like knowing the heart of the thing beats the same as its skin. Dinner is late, the beer is flat. You don't mind. You sleep heavily, dreams full of steps and shadows and laughter scratched into stone.
The last day begins with birdsong. Not the shrieking, chaotic kind you're used to, but a gentle trill from a fig tree outside camp. You lie still, letting it soak in. The sun's not quite up yet, and the sky glows a soft pearl gray, like the world is slowly remembering how to be warm. You rise early, not because you have to, but because you want to. Your feet carry you toward the pyramid before anyone else is awake. The site is quiet. Even the foremen are still chewing their first bites of bread. You climb the outer ramp alone, hands brushing the edges of stone you helped place, shape, align. You pause halfway up. The view is absurd. The desert stretches endlessly in all directions, dunes like sleeping beasts. The Nile is a silver ribbon in the distance, dotted with barges. And below, the workers' village, small fires, scattered laundry, someone already yelling about goats. You sit down, feet dangling over the edge, and just breathe. Fact of the day. The pyramid was once covered in polished white limestone, reflecting the sun so brilliantly it could be seen from miles away. Some say it shone like a star fallen to earth. You think it still does, just differently now. A young boy joins you,
climbing slowly with a pot of water balanced on his shoulder. He offers you a sip, you take it, thank him, and he nods solemnly before continuing upward. You watch him go, thinking how some days feel like circles and some like spirals. Weird tidbit? One ancient papyrus suggests workers believed those who died during construction were buried beneath the site, guarding it in spirit. You wonder if their bones ever whispered to the stones you touched. Later, you return to your post, polishing, measuring, answering questions from a nervous apprentice who keeps calling you, "Sir." You don't correct him, just this once. At midday, a small ceremony is held at the base. The 100,000th stone, they think, is placed. A priest blesses it. A foreman weeps openly. A goat escapes. You laugh with your crew until your ribs hurt. As the sun sets, the pyramid catches the light one last time. It doesn't shimmer like gold. It glows like memory. Historians still debate whether these workers knew their names would be forgotten, but you think maybe, just maybe, that was never the point. You were never meant to be remembered, just to be part of something that would be. You sit one last time by the scaffold, chewing a date, watching stars emerge above the eastern ridge. The pyramid behind you stands, complete, silent, immense, kind. You close your eyes and feel your place in the world click into place, like a final block, set at last.